Welcome to the Elvis Presley channel. The King of Rock and Roll was dear to many people's hearts during his time. So many would have wondered about so many things that had to do with him. For instance, not many know that Elvis Presley is actually a twin. There isn't much the public doesn't know about the birth, life and death of Elvis Presley, as he is arguably the most famous entertainer ever to live. But this is top tier. As you might have noticed during his career, a couple of aspects of his life were pushed to the background in favour of more flashy content. Unfortunately, his twin brother could not live to watch Elvis Presley grow into the magnificent man he would become. Did Elvis Presley have a twin brother? Make sure to watch the video until the end, and if you are new here, don't forget to join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Elvis Presley channel. Elvis Presley's twin brother, Jesse Presley. Elvis Presley was raised as an only child in a small, impoverished home. Vernon married Gladys Love Smith, who was 4 years his senior. He was 17 years old when they got married. Vernon, like his relatives before him, took whatever odd job that came his way to make ends meet. He and his older brother Vesta farmed together for a while, cultivating cotton, corn, soybeans and a few hogs. Later he worked for the WPA, a federal government work assistance program during the Great Depression. Following that he worked as a delivery driver for McCarty's, a Tupelo wholesale grocer, delivering groceries to stores all around northeast Mississippi. These were the Presley genes passed down through the generations, some of which were definitely inherited by the newborn, born in that two-room house in the East Tupelo Hills. Cletis, Gladys's younger sister, married Vesta, Vernon's older brother, meaning two brothers married two sisters. However, their roles were initially reversed when they were all in the courting stage of their lives. Gladys was Vesta's first love. I dated Gladys a couple of times, and Vernon dated Cletis, recounts Vesta. Gladys was not a fan of my demeanour. I was too crazy back then, as I've always told you. So Gladys stopped seeing me, and the Smith girls stopped seeing us for a bit. Gladys Smith and Vernon Presley married on June 17, 1933, in Pontotoc County, where no one knew either of them. They both lied about their ages, as Vernon stated that he was 22 years old, while Gladys said she was 19 years old. Vernon was not of legal age at the time, but Gladys was. Gladys kept her actual age hidden for the majority of her life. If they had been caught at that time, they would not have been allowed to marry until years later. Who knows, they might have broken up at some point, and we would not have witnessed the awesome rise of the undisputable King of Rock and Roll. Impetuosity and impulsiveness played a significant part in Gladys's make-up. Elaine Dundee writes in her book Elvis and Gladys. She didn't believe in half measures, and she didn't seem half-hearted or self-protective. Most of Elvis's unpredictability was from Gladys, his dear mother. Gladys found out she was pregnant at the end of June 1934. She was quite positive she was having twins around the 5th month, because she was abnormally large and she could feel 2 babies kicking. They also had a family history of twins on both sides. Gladys worked at the Tupelo Garment Company for $2 a day, while Vernon did odd jobs around town, including one on Orville S. Bean's dairy farm. Vernon built a family house with $180, borrowed from Bean, when Gladys got pregnant, and he and Gladys moved there that December. Elvis Presley's birthplace was built by his father with the help of Vesta and his father Jesse, who lived next door in a relatively spacious 4-room house, which was located along Old Saltillo Road above a highway that connected Tupelo and Birmingham, Alabama, and nestled among a group of modest, rough-hewn dwellings. The house that the King of Rock and Roll grew up in had neither indoor plumbing nor electricity. It was connected, but not used due to the cost, and it was comparable to the mill village houses of the period. Gladys was near death after the birth, so she and Elvis were rushed to Tupelo Hospital. Family and friends noticed Gladys's overprotectiveness of her newborn kid once she and Elvis came home. She was terrified that something terrible might happen to him. Gladys's mother, Dole Smith, had died in 1935, and was buried in the same unmarked grave as her husband, Bob Smith. Gladys, like Elvis, lost her mother when she was a child, so her connection with her son was understandable. Elvis's early years were a rodeo on its own, owing partly to the poverty and financial circumstances of his parents. Yet Elvis grew up in a close-knit, working-class family that included his parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles and cousins, all of whom lived in Tupelo. Even though they had little money, Vernon and Gladys did everything they could to provide for their son, who is the centre of their lives. However, what many do not know is that Elvis was in fact Gladys's second child, but he grew up as an only kid. How come? Well, Gladys had just given birth to Elvis's twin, Jessie Garron Presley, 35 minutes before Elvis came into the world. Jessie, however, never got the chance to enjoy life with his twin brother. Jessie Garron Presley, the future king of rock and roll's twin, died in his mother's womb. The Presleys had no choice but to bury Jessie in an unmarked grave because they had nothing to their name. On the day of his birth, January 9, 1935, he was laid to rest in the neighbouring Priceville Cemetery. So Elvis Presley's early life was dominated by poverty and tragedy, beginning with the death of his twin brother. Vernon was once sentenced to 3 years in jail in 1938 for forging a $4 cheque. According to history, the father of the king served less than a year in prison, which was a stroke of luck for Gladys and Elvis. Who knows what could have happened without their father by their side for so long? Maybe the king of rock and roll might have veered off the path of art into the path of crime. Can you imagine that? Elvis Presley, the king of crime. It sounds like a movie title, but that would definitely do the numbers. After his release, Vernon took his family and travelled from Tupelo, Mississippi to Memphis, Tennessee, the city most intimately connected with Elvis Presley's legacy. Vernon moved to the volunteer state in search of greener pastures, and it was here that Elvis attended Humes High School, becoming the first member of his immediate family to receive a high school certificate. His path to stardom, on the other hand, was far from straightforward. Elvis was silent and an outsider at Humes. He even failed miserably in his music class in school. After graduating in 1953, the icon worked in a machinist shop and later drove a truck before deciding to pursue a career in music. Elvis was constantly immersed in the euphoria of music, so in 1954 he released his first recording, That's All Right, just a year after graduation, and the world as we know it never remained the same again. However, according to some, Jessie's death is crucial to understanding Elvis's life. In his book, The Inner Elvis, clinical psychologist Peter Whitmer argued that Elvis's twins' loss at birth was a tragedy that initiated a process that made his dead brother the bedrock and the solitary driving force in his existence. He adds that his brother was a restless ghost who ultimately plagued all of Presley's friendships and relationships. According to Whitmer, Elvis would occasionally pay a visit to his brother's grave and speak with him. His mother reportedly claimed that the king was living for two people. Other biographers have speculated that Elvis's twins' death tormented him throughout his life, leaving him with feelings of loneliness and remorse. This was probably one of the reasons why he willingly went to war when he was drafted. He was quite the star when he was drafted into the army, so it would have been easy to avoid being part of the war. But, bound by duty and probably survivor's guilt, Elvis dived headlong into the battlefront. Thankfully he didn't die, and he ended up meeting the only woman whom he married, the mother of his child, Priscilla Presley. Maybe she gave him the will to live at some point, and we will never know. Sadly, Elvis Presley died in 1977 at the age of 42, so fans will probably never know what he thought about his elder brother's untimely death and how it influenced his life, despite speculation. Some people who have lost twin siblings were said to feel a special bond with the vocalist of Hound Dog. If you talk to any twinless twin, any surviving twin, Whitmer added, Elvis is big in their life. Reportedly, when a twinless twin first heard Elvis's songs as a teenager, she felt that there was this popular guy putting words to what I had felt but I didn't talk about it. This woman had, like Elvis, lost her twin at birth. The annual conference of a support organisation for twinless twins was held in Graceland, Elvis Presley's house, in Memphis, where there is also a tribute to Jesse. Some Elvis Presley fans have long been interested in the story of the singer's twin, and it is not surprising to see conspiracy theories springing forth here and there. Jesse Presley, according to conspiracy theorists, did not die at birth. They claim that Elvis employed his brother in interviews as a stunt double. Some filmmakers went as far as using the narrative of Elvis-like twins who are separated at birth and go on to seek careers as singers. The movie title was The Identical, which was inspired by the concept of there being another Elvis. It garnered a lot of bad reviews, though. Many claimed the progenitors of the idea of the movie had their hearts in the right place. However, the delivery was just too bad to be lauded as a good movie. Some people are unaware of many aspects of Elvis Presley's life, particularly his family. His estate has been in disarray for some decades, but his ex-wife Priscilla Presley and his daughter Lisa Marie Presley are striving to rectify the situation. Riley, his granddaughter, is an accomplished actress. Elvis Presley is one of the most renowned individuals to have ever lived on the globe, and he will always be a source of rumour and talk. Some fans believe Elvis pretended to die and is still alive. Just imagine that. The king of rock and roll just ups and jumps on the stage singing a new song titled I'm Not Dead. That would be epic. Sadly, we would never get such an exhilarating concert because he is truly dead and buried. Elvis Presley did not inherit the massive fortune that his daughter Lisa Marie did. In reality, when Gladys Presley became pregnant with identical twins, his parents, Vernon and Gladys Presley, were in dire straits. Elvis Presley's name is an anagram of lives, and he may have spent most of his life dealing with survivor's guilt. Many biographers believe that Jesse's death influenced Elvis for the rest of his life, both positively and negatively. On the one hand, his brother's death may have provided Elvis with the impetus he needed to grow into the legend he is today. On the other hand, other people believe that a lot of his problems arose from survivor's guilt. A twinless twin may feel guilty about their twin's death, either because they believe they caused it or because they lived while the twin died. Some speculate that Elvis's shyness and lack of self-confidence stemmed from his remorse over Jesse. Vernon Chadwick, another author, says, "We know that twins who lose their twin face a variety of issues later in life. The subject of Elvis's twins can help us comprehend both the immense power Elvis had to connect with an audience, as if he were reaching out to his dead brother, and the emptiness of the so-called black hole that lone twins frequently suffer. Elvis felt bad over the death of his twin brother, just showed how much of a deep feeler Elvis was. To mourn the death of one whom you did not meet for almost the days of his life showed that he was such a beautiful human with a loving heart. It's extremely likely that Elvis's remorse contributed to his eventual problematic behaviour. Elvis was even said to be haunted by his brother in his dreams, according to some. The musician allegedly used to converse with Jesse in his bed at night, and once heard what he thought was Jesse's voice. So many people believe that Jesse's spirit guided Elvis to fame in a guardian angel-like manner. Jesse may have been spiritually present for his younger brother, but that doesn't mean Elvis didn't struggle with guilt and the black hole that many twinless twins experience. We'll never know how Elvis felt about Jesse's death, if it genuinely affected him at all, or the music he gave to the world before his passing, but he definitely loved him because he had a headstone at Graceland dedicated to him. Despite the fact that he never met his twin brother and presumably suffered terrible guilt, as a result Elvis managed to become a symbol for individuals who have lost a sibling from the moment they were born into the world, adding another facet to the iconic icon, King of Rock and Roll. The loss of a child is a horrible tragedy for a mother, but Elvis's mother thought there was another tragedy in her life. Watch this video and find out why Elvis Presley's fame was a curse for Gladys.